Subhanallah. Well, it's an honor and a blessing to be here. Let's do something like this. Let's sing this together. So you respond. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. All right, you guys are good at call and response. That was a test. How about this one now? La ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah, Muhammadun Rasulullah, alayhi salatullah, La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. You guys are dope. Give yourself a round of applause. For the record, I don't really sing. That's for the other two that came up here. And Sheikh Tijani, who you guys are going to hear. Does everybody know Sheikh Tijani? Sheikh Tijani, mashallah, Allah bless him. I've had the opportunity to hang out with him the last few days, and I can tell you, he doesn't just sing when he's on stage. He sings everywhere. He sings when he walks into the hotel, and he's speaking to the person working at the hotel. This one's better? Bismillah. He sings, it matches my shoes, this one. Can I get some length? That's as much. Okay, I'm going to stand here. Literally, the woman at the counter at the lobby, her name was Grace. So he starts singing, Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound. And of course, I can't, it's a poor imitation of him that I'm doing. He sings his order at the restaurant, mashallah. But it's been a beautiful thing being with him because you see, you know, people that are strangers, we're kind of like uptight. But then someone starts singing and it makes everyone loosen up and everyone laughs and smiles. And now every time he walks in the hotel, everyone smiles. And it's a beautiful example of the prophetic sunnah. The Prophet ﷺ, when people see him, they would just become happy. So if only I could sing, I would do that everywhere I went to, but I can't. MashaAllah. So we're going to do it like this. You guys are so good at call and response. I'm going to recite a poem that's also a dua. And after every line, you guys say Ameen. All right? But again, we got to bring it from the heart and the soul. Be free of its prison. Ameen. May Allah increase you in your vision. Ameen. May you find everything you've been missing. Ameen. May you awake for prayer before the sun has risen. Ameen. When you speak, may your audience listen. Ameen. May you never feel trapped in the system. Ameen. May you sire many righteous children. Ameen. Who will act on prophetic tradition. May you always have food on your plate. Ameen. May you learn from every mistake. Ameen. May you rise above all the hate. Ameen. And may Allah increase you in your state. Ameen. May you never pretend that you are what you ain't. Ameen. May your friends be real and never be fake. Ameen. May your rent never have to be late. Ameen. And may your health always be great. Ameen. May Allah forgive every sin. Ameen. Now and forever if you falter again. Ameen. And may you always stay close with your kin. And may He make all your enemies friends. Ameen. May He make reality of your plans. Ameen. May your present be pleasant. May you have a good end. Ameen. May your heart be purified of its flaws. Ameen. And may you act according to the laws. Ameen. That were revealed in the book of Allah. Ameen. And may He catch you whenever you fall. Ameen. May the One guide you to the truth. Ameen. When you doubt, may He show you the proof. Ameen. May you be like the Ahl Suf, with the wisdom of the elders, the energy of the youth. May He accept your prayers and your fasts, the very first all the way to the last, and remove obstacles that you have. And may you receive everything that you ask. May you never have regret for your past, and receive mercy, not the wrath. And as you travel down your personal path, may you always have a reason to laugh. Ameen. Give yourself a round of applause. Ameen. That's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. The reason it's so nice to have people saying Ameen because my teachers taught me that when everyone says Ameen, that Allah will answer it according to the most sincere in the gathering. And so who knows? It might be one young person, it might be one old person. It's probably not me, so that's why I get the Ameens. Alhamdulillah. Allah bless you all. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. We have had a blessed time. We're in Mukha Cafe, right? Huh? Mukha. MashaAllah, Allah bless this place, and thank you for allowing us to be here. Thank Crescent Collective for organizing this event. We thank Sheikh Razi. We thank Mustafa Debu. You know Debu, right? They're famous. I walk around when I want things to happen for me in Malaysia and Indonesia. I say, I'm part of Debu. So maybe you give me free food, I don't know. Everyone wants to take pictures of me. They say, oh, you're in Debu. I see I look like I am because I got the long blonde hair. They fall for it. MashaAllah. So, and then of course Sheikh Tijani, who will come, and everyone involved and every one of you. Because, MashaAllah, you could all give me a Mercedes-Benz if you wanted. I wouldn't object. You could give me diamonds and emeralds and rubies and pearls, and that'd be very nice of you, and I would accept gladly. You could give me gold and silver. You get the point. But the most precious thing that you can give me, and even more precious than all that, is your time, your breaths. Because a breath is worth much more than gold. And once it's gone, it's gone. Yes? Can everyone hear me? If you're outside and you can't hear, maybe you can come in and we'll just be like sardines. There's room in here though, honestly, if you can't hear. So we all are giving each other the most precious gift in each moment, and that is our time. The great Persian poet Hafiz, he had an amazing line of poetry. He said, how would you feel if a great and noble and powerful and righteous king invited you to his most important banquet, and he gave you a handwritten letter to, and then your name, please be my honored guest? How would you feel when you walked up to the ballroom and it's such a beautiful gathering? Whoa. And as you walk in, you are honored as an honored guest of the king. And you see all the other guests and everyone else, they also got that handwritten note. So how would you treat people that you know they're the honored guest of the king? And how would they treat you knowing you're the honored guest of the king? He said, know that everyone that you meet on this jeweled dance floor is an honored guest of the king. Everyone here on earth received an invitation from Allah, directly handwritten from Allah. And everyone received their ruh from Allah, Nafas ar-Rahman. So every one of us is a very special being. And how would you treat a human being if you had that in your mind at all times, right? So these are things that we shoot for. Tonight we're going to talk about the great poet Mawlana Jalaluddin Rumi a bit. That's the topic we've been given. And then I'm going to intersperse some of my poetry while commenting on some of his. And we'll keep it short and sweet so we can get Sheikh Tijani to come sing to us and serenade us, inshallah. And then maybe we'll, because those musicians, they're really good. It was too short, so maybe we can invite them up at the end. Mawlana Rumi, he starts off his magnum opus by saying, listen to the sound of the reed as it tells a tale, complaining of its separation. Anything that's been severed from its home, from its origin, it yearns the moment of return. So Rumi, like any good mystic, he's hearing the signs. He's hearing something deeper. In the gatherings of remembrance that he would have, they would play the ney, the reed flute. And in the song of the reed flute, anyone who's heard the reed flute, you know it's a very beautiful sound, but it also has like a sadness to it. You know, like there's some certain instruments that they sound almost like they're crying. And you hear them and they make you like it, but it's also kind of like a melancholy feeling, right? You might hear it and all of a sudden feel like, I long for something, and not even know what that something is. So Rumi says, because like anyone who's truly walking the path of La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, They're not just hearing sounds or seeing colors or hearing things, but they're seeing ayatullah. They're seeing that this creation is just signs of God, and that it's pointing to something beyond it. Ibn Ata'illah said that all the forms you see, they're just meaning propped up in forms, you know? Yeah, there's a meaning behind it. So Rumi saying, in this reed crying, I hear something, I hear a secret. Do you hear it? He's saying this reed, it was in the riverbed where the reeds grow. And then it was cut from there. And it was taken away to the city and it was carved into. And then it was made into an instrument. And then it was given breath. And when it's given breath, it starts to cry. And this crying is saying, take me home. I'm not from this strange, strange world. I'm from the riverbed. I'm not from this planet that you've taken me to, and I miss my home. So Rumi says this is the human condition, because we're not from this world, right? We're all ETs. We're all extraterrestrial. Extraterrestrial means from extra, outside of Earth, terrestrial. We're from outside of Earth. We're ETs, right? Phone home. Phone home. You know, and we are ruh. You know, there's a saying that says, you don't, what does it say? You don't have a soul. You are a soul. You have a body. Right? And that's the reality. We have a ruh, a spirit, a soul, and it came into this realm, and our spirit can't stay in this world unless it wears its spacesuit, this meat spacesuit that we wear, called the body, right? We're all wearing meat spacesuits. And if our spacesuit, right? You guys see, what's the movie where the guy goes to Mars? The Martian? Yeah, if he loses his helmet, khalas, he's done. It's like us, we lose our head, we have to leave this world. We're ETs. And we all intuit deep inside of ourselves that there's somewhere else. And where is that else? Alastu bi rabbikum. The plane of Alastu bi rabbikum in the Quran, where Allah says, am I not your Lord? Where every soul, each one of you, and each person that's ever lived, and each person that will come to live, was assembled on a plane. And this plane was a place where we were communing with our Creator, with our Source, and we were in the divine presence. And this is a place where there was no imperfection. There was nothing lacking. It was perfect. And this is where we were. And this is where we're from. And we all intuit it deep within ourselves. Some people remember it better than others. But then Allah said, Alastu bi rabbikum, and we said, Bala shahidna. Yes, we bear witness. We, nahnu, shahidna. We all were there and we were aware of each other. Right? And that's why they say some souls were nearer each other than others. That's why you have an affinity for certain people when you meet them, because your souls knew each other in that realm. And so we were taken out. So this is the reed bed diaspora. But we're all yearning for the return. And so some songs of yearning for return are very beautiful and some aren't so beautiful. But everyone, whether they know it or not, that's what they're. And people try in different ways to fill that hole of yearning. Some people, right, they go to the discotheque. They go to the club, and in the moment of loud music and maybe drinking a little and dancing, they try to lose themselves for a minute. They try to transcend themselves in that moment. Or maybe they do it at you guys play soccer here, football. Right? They do it at the football stadium. Everyone's watching it. You're rooting for your team. You get lost in the moment. You forget about your bills, your troubles, your pain. You're just lost in that moment. Ecstasy, right? Some people do it in a movie, right? You get lost in all the stories and the plot twists, and you're watching someone else's life, right? You forget your problems. You forget your struggles. You forget that hole, right? That when you're alone, all alone, right? In khalwa, and it doesn't count being all alone if you have your phone on and you're looking at Facebook. That doesn't count. That means you're in the world. You're in the souk. You're in the market. But when you're all alone, right? One of my friends, Amir Suleiman, amazing American poet, he said the same thing that pulls the fiend to the pipe is the same thing that pulls the human being to the light, the love of love. Right? The fiend to the pipe, the drug addict in his drug, what does he find? He's seeking to transcend his self, his individual I, his me, his nafs, even for that moment of ecstasy. So these are all people seeking. But, alhamdulillah, that we've been given the most beautiful way to know our Creator and to fill that hole within ourselves. But this perspective allows us to have compassion on people that may be astray. They don't know the way necessarily to fill that hole in themselves. Right? And Rumi has something funny to say about that. He said, Jesus was once riding his donkey, and Jesus was drunk on Allah, and the donkey was drunk on barley. Rumi, again, like any good believer, he's talking in signs and symbols. Because he said, for him, Jesus is Ruh Allah in the Quran, right? He's a spirit from God. And we all have a spirit from God, don't we? So Jesus is a symbol of the spirit in each and every one of us. The Ruh, the true nature of each and every one of us. That's what Jesus represents in Rumi's poetry. And the donkey, so alhamdulillah, we all have a Jesus, but we also all have a donkey inside of us. And that's our nafs, that's our nafs al-amara bisu, our lower self. You know, this me, this I, this selfishness. And so this selfishness is only, right, barley's like the cheapest of grains. So the lower self, it's obsessed with the lowest things. But the ruh, the spirit, it is only fed, it only is drunk, quote unquote, with the highest things. And it's beautiful because Rumi is basically saying, I'm not telling you to not get drunk, okay, but I'm telling you to upgrade your intoxicants, right? Get drunk on what your soul really wants to get drunk on. I had a line, I said, the liquor made me sicker, but the dhikr made me drunk. So, Allah give us openings and give us tawfiq. The message of Rumi is beautiful for all times because the message of Rumi is that you are special because you have a personal connection with Allah. And that deep in your heart is a window that opens to the divine presence. And if you would only knock at that window and turn and close the window of your heart that's to the world for a while, it will open. Rumi said, you are not only a drop in the ocean, but you are also the entire ocean in a drop. He has many things like that. He said, your task is not to seek for love, but to seek all the barriers within yourself that you have built to love. Because the secret is, Allah is not stingy. Far be it from Allah to be stingy. So Allah is present in every moment. And Allah is pouring openings and giving gifts and mercy in every moment. So why aren't we all then receiving these gifts? Right? And Rumi gives the analogy of the wine. Right? A lot of people in the West, they read Rumi. He's the #1 selling poet in America. Did you know that? People love Rumi. They might read him and think he's just talking about wine and women. Right? But we know that these are symbols that he's using. Because the wine for Rumi is the divine presence. The openings, the futuhat, the nafahat, the spiritual experiences that Allah gives you if you're sincere and you cleanse your heart. We all know those moments maybe in Taraweeh or in fasting or in prayer or those moments of sincerity. Not every prayer is the best prayer we've ever prayed, right? But there's every once in a while we have those prayers where we don't want it to end. This is the real wine. So Rumi is saying Allah is always pouring the wine, right? But why isn't everyone getting drunk then? Because not all cups are ready to receive what's being poured. Some cups are faced upside down. Those can't receive, right? Those are people that are turned away. They're turned towards the world. They're distracted, right? Or some cups, maybe they're turned up, but they have so much filth in them that the wine can't get in. You have to purify your cup, right? That's our job, is just to prepare our cup for all that's being poured and know that Allah is pouring. And it's easy for Allah to purify our cups in an instant. May Allah purify our cups. Ameen Ya Rabbil Alameen. No. People may ask, why did Rumi use an analogy? And it's not just Rumi, but many of the great Muslim poets. Why did they use the analogy of wine when it's forbidden in the Sharia? And, you know, that's a good question. There could probably be a lot said about that. But one of the things, and Mustafa Debu, he mentioned a beautiful story about Layla and Majnun. Everyone knows Layla and Majnun, right? It's like the Muslim Romeo and Juliet, right? But this is actually a pre-Islamic story that the Arabs had. And so, and it's just about human love, right? Qais was his name, and then he became called Majnun, which means madman, because he couldn't be with Layla. She got married off to someone else. Her father married her off to, and so he just became a madman wandering in his love for her. He followed a dog down the street for days. And they said, why are you crazy? Why are you following that dog? He said, once I saw this dog following Layla. He was kissing a wall over and over again. Just a wall in the street, kissing it. And people walked by. Majnun, crazy man, what are you doing? He said, I once saw Layla walk by this wall. He was so devoted to her that he would give his life. So later, the great Muslim poets, they took this analogy, this story, and they say, this is how we should be for Allah. Right? And so they took the analogy, Layla was her name, but Layla also means the night in Arabic, right? So the night, what a profound symbolism, because in the night, right, it's all is enveloped, all is oneness. You can't see anything but one, right, darkness. But in the daytime, then it's multiplicity. Now you see all the forms. So the Layla, it represents Allah. It represents the one, the divine unity, right? So now all these poems about Layla, talking about Allah, talking about the beloved being Allah. And likewise, all the Arabs, they had all these poems about wine and things like that. They said, wine is about this spiritual presence. Wine is about the openings that Allah gives you. So they took this and they used this. And they even saw, they said, look at the drunkards. They're totally devoted to alcohol, right? To the point that they'll lose their family, their wealth, their everything. They said they're more devoted to their alcohol than we are to Allah. So anyway, these things are beautiful. MashaAllah, I'll recite a poem. This is called Opposite of Evolution. I did this piece a few nights ago. I asked everyone if anyone used to watch the Jetsons when they were young. The Jetsons, not the Flintstones, the Jetsons. The Flintstones is when they went back in time. The Jetsons is when they went into the future. Two great cartoons that I grew up on. And, you know, or Back to the Future, Michael J. Fox. Okay, I'm not losing you guys, right? All these American Hollywood references. I know you guys watch more movies than me here, so don't pretend. Oh, you guys watch Bollywood, that's why. I don't know Bollywood references. But in the future, it's funny how all these movies about the future, they always get it wrong. Like they always, you know, like all these movies, they never knew that we would be able to communicate with each other with these phones and, you know, at all times. They didn't like envision the internet. They always thought we'd have flying cars, which is the one thing that I really wish we would get pretty soon. And we wouldn't have to sit in traffic. Although it'd be bad to get in an accident in the middle of the air. But anyway, they'll work that out, I'm sure. Anyway, the future, it's an amazing thing, but we live in the future now. I mean, if you really think about it, the phone you have in your pocket is more powerful than the most powerful computer in the world was 20 years ago. 20 years ago. In human history, that's nothing. And in that computer in your pocket, you could communicate with any human being on earth instantly. You can access the entire range of human accumulated knowledge immediately, right? Just ask Siri. I mean, this is unbelievable. We live in very strange times. I mean, we're used to it because we grew up like flying in airplanes, but I got here by flying in a 20-ton metal box that flies through the air. How does that even happen? You know what I mean? So we live in the future is what I'm trying to say. Now, alhamdulillah, I'm not a Luddite. That's a good vocabulary word. You guys know Luddite? It's someone who is against technology, for the note takers. I love technology, but at the same time, I fear that human beings are becoming more arrogant and full of themselves with their technology. Look at all these amazing things we can do. And you hear people say even, what could people 100 years ago or 200 years ago even have known? They didn't have Wikipedia or Google or Facebook or anything. What could they have known, right? So there's this type of arrogance, this hubris that comes along with it. But it's interesting that in Islam, and also in all the major world religions, which is fascinating, they have this in common, that they don't teach, they never taught this idea of human progress, that people are progressing. That's a very modern idea. In fact, all religions teach that actually there's a de-evolution over time. There's a de-evolution over time, right? And we actually believe as believers that the greatest, the most advanced, the most developed, the most evolved of peoples, of generations, was a generation that lived in basically mud huts, right? So that should tell us, wait, maybe there's something other than technology that defines human progress or human evolution or human quality. So anyway, this poem is about that. I believe in the opposite of evolution. We all once spoke in poem. The heartbeat was the drum beat, but most have lost the essence in the form. The bumbling caveman we imagine is us, in fact, in truth. Things are flowing down, not upward. The waterfall is proof. When spirit danced on tooth and lip, and hearts were carved with tongue, when nature was revelation, but now what will we tell our young? I believe this moment here and now was written before the stars, each word red in color, like dust storm clouds on Mars, no black and white, salmon swimming upstream home like Adam since the fall. The voice was never silent. The question is who will heed the call? Darwin's dreams were misinterpreted. He thought that science was a lie. He didn't ask the ones who'd mastered, but thought who'd better know than I. The bumbling caveman we imagine is us, in fact, in truth. Things are flowing down, not upward. The waterfall is proof. When spirit danced on tooth and lip, and hearts were carved with tongue, when nature was revelation. But now what will we tell our young? And I don't believe that the ends necessarily justify the means, because for the one outside of time, there is no end or in between. So if you lean much closer, I'll share a secret I was told. Hell is not just burning fire, it is also freezing cold. Contemplate the range of temperatures in our galaxy alone. By what we can bear within that scale, our fragility is shown, but a fraction. Arrogance from this point of view is such an odd reaction, yet so many claim to know it all, so many sects and factions. Who will come down from themselves and truly prostrate only once? But it's hard to see through the dancing girls, flowing liquor, clouds of blunts, media smoke screens and million-dollar marketing campaigns. See, many are who they are, as they were molded for someone else's gain. I seek refuge in Thee, who caused the day to break, and pray that all our eyes will finally see just what's at stake. If it is evolution, then tell me what it's for. Atom bomb, striped toothpaste, and trillion-dollar war? Is this the peak of all that's come a billion years before? Or is this simply the furthest away we have yet drifted from the core? Thank you. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad. Can you imagine one who was the gentlest of men, while being the most brave and just of all who've been? One who conquered all desires of self that make men weak, who granted all who asked him precisely what they seek, whom only jewels poured out his mouth whenever he would speak, who was the gem amongst the stones of men who shined unique, a selflessness and generosity that some would say was merely myth until they'd seen the lovers of his way, who used to mend his sandals and used to patch his clothes, who used to serve his family whenever he was home, who had a noble shyness, not gazing long upon a face, who honored all he ever met, be they king or be they slave, who always found himself at home the most amongst the poor, who never angered for himself, but only for his Lord. Always just, always truthful, conscious of the one, even if it brought discomfort to himself and those he loved. A satiated stomach his whole life was rarely felt, not due to poverty, but preference of others to himself, who knew the time of day by sun and the direction by the stars, who would walk amongst his enemies without a single guard, devoid of any lower self, just humble and serene, eloquent but not verbose, just precisely what he means, whom all within his company felt light and sacred cheer, whom there was not a thing within creation that he feared, who loved to play with children and run races with his wives, who would join the festivities and honor customs of all tribes. When people yelled and lost their cool around him, he was calm, who asked forgiveness for his enemies, even as they did him wrong, who kept a goat he'd milk himself for people in his house, whose wives, when asked about him, said he was the perfect spouse, who never looked down on a pauper or flattered once a prince, but called every soul unto the one without even a flinch. Every single gorgeous trait of character he had, of noble lineage, yet he was the orphan of his clan. One imbued with wisdom and piercing inner sight, yet he was the unlettered one who would neither read nor write. All knowledge and trait of character unflawed were placed inside his very being directly by Allah. The way to salvation and triumph after death, to detachment and joy in life with each and every breath. To walk the righteous path and never falter come what may. And may Allah give us success in following his way. They call him El Amin, the trustworthy, the honest, and we call him beloved, our master, Muhammad. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Jazakallah khair. Alhamdulillah. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. Does that sound like the person they malign? That poem is actually a poem I read in Imam al-Ghazali's Ihya al-Ulumuddin. He has this summary in book 20 of the Ihya where he summarizes the Prophet's character and just how he was. And I was so moved by it, this 1,000-year-old book, that I wrote this poem basically putting Imam al-Ghazali into poetic form. So that's that. Now, mashallah, tabarakallah, where's Mehdar? How much time do we have? He's on his Facebook. He's not even paying attention. How are we doing time-wise? Because I want to leave time for Sheikh Tijani to sing.
Okay.
One more, two more poems, any? Okay, inshallah. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammad. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. First, I want to tell a story. So, who's in school right now? I know I saw some younger people. No one's in school? Not even college students? Oh, you're in school. Okay, there we go. Don't be so shy. You're in school. Now, if you're in school, I'm sure you're a better student than I was. But now that I'm older than school-aged, I look back on my schooling and subhanAllah, there's whole years of school where I literally don't remember a single thing I learned. I'm still waiting for all those Pythagorean theorems and things to kick in real life. It would have helped if they just taught us how to do our taxes. That would have helped me. But in 7th grade, there's one day in class that I remember. One day. And I'll never forget. And I always, mashallah, I always think of it. And this teacher, she was a good teacher, mashallah. Good teachers can change your life. In fact, now she's had me come back to her class and teach about Islam because I became Muslim and she wants her students to learn about Islam. She's a really good woman, mashallah. But one day she told us Plato's allegory of the cave. And I'm going to summarize it in my own way for those that know or don't know. It's a beautiful allegory and it pierced me in my heart when I heard it as a young boy. So the allegory is this. One day, it's just a made-up story. It's an allegory, but there's a cave. And there's a group of people in this cave. And they were born and raised in the cave. They never left the cave. In fact, they're chained in the cave and their necks are yoked so they can't even look around the cave. All they can see is the back wall of the cave. All right? Now, all they see are these shadows on the cave wall. That's it. And for them, that's their world. That's their universe. That's all that exists. That's all they've ever seen. Now, all of a sudden, one day, one of them finds himself free of his chains. And he can move his head around and he can get up and walk around the cave. And very soon he realizes that at the other end of the cave, there's a light. There's a light. And so he looks and he realizes the shadows that they thought were real, it's just the light interacting with the darkness. So then, naturally, like any one of us, he wants to go towards the light. What's this light? So he gets closer and closer to the light and gets brighter and brighter until finally he steps into the light. And it's so powerful and so blinding and so brilliant that he's blinded and he can't see, he doesn't know which way is up or down, and it's painful, but it's beautiful and it's so intense. And all of a sudden his eyes adjust and he's outside of the cave. And he sees plants and trees and rivers and birds and animals and all the sounds and colors of the earth. And he's naturally astonished at how vast and beautiful the world actually is when he thought that was everything. And so naturally after exploring for a little while, he runs back to the cave to tell his people. And he says, "Oh, my people, this is not all there is. There's a whole world out there. There's a light, and there's trees, and there's birds, and there's plants, and there's purple and blue and pink and all type of colors." But his people just look at him like, what is this guy talking about? Because all they've ever seen is the shadows. So they have actually no reference point for anything he's saying. But he's so insistent, no, you have to understand, there's a world, and he tries to describe it as best as he can. But they're still confused. But because he's so insistent, and he's really, really wants them to understand, at a certain point, they go from confusion to actually hating him. Because what he's saying is undermining their entire understanding, their entire worldview. And it's challenging everything they've believed to be true. And that's difficult for the human being, right? So they turn against him. So this is the summary of the allegory. And when I was a young boy, 12, 13, whatever, not really paying very good attention until the teacher told this story, it just hit me. I said, that's real. We're in the cave and there's a way out. I know, and I have to find it. There's a way out. And when I became a seeker on the path and I started asking questions, what is life about? What is the purpose of life? My best friend, when I was going into high school, he died in a car crash. And believe it or not, I was maybe 14, 15. I had never known anyone close to me that died. Even all my grandparents were alive at the time. I'd never been to a funeral. I've never really thought that deeply about death. But then all of a sudden I was confronted with it in a really intense way. And so I started thinking about death and what's the purpose of life and what are the different religions or philosophies or spiritual teachings say about this? What do human beings say about this? I want to know what they all say. Because I'm going to leave this earth pretty soon. I want to know where was I before? Where will I go? What's the purpose? So this set me off on my journey. And mashallah, when I started studying about Islam and I started studying the Quran, and it came through the poetry of Rumi and others, you know, I realized about that cave analogy that the prophets, those are the ones, and the awliya, the saints, they're the ones that got outside of the cave. And they came back to their people and tried to tell them, oh my people, ya qawmi, ya qawmi, this world isn't all there is. There's a greater world. This world is just shadows. It's a mix of light and dark, right? But it is created by light, Nur, one of Allah's name, right? And there's a world infinitely more beautiful and infinitely more vast out there. And what happened to most of the prophets? Their people turned on them too. Their people turned on them. So may we be people who get out of the cave, inshallah. Dhawq, haqq al-yaqeen, right? And not just people that hear the stories about outside of the cave, right? Rumi and others of the Sufi poets, they say, They say, the only people that understand honey are the ones that taste honey. Right? If there was a person in the room that never tasted honey, you can't explain it. You say, oh, it's sweet like sugar, but honey's not like sugar. Oh, it's sticky and thick like molasses, but honey's not like molasses. Right? You could write a whole book, a whole library full about honey. What it's like, what its properties are, what its chemical breakdowns, and how it's produced and how it's harvested. But if you haven't tasted honey, what is that even worth? One taste of honey, you don't need the library, right? This is what this deen is really about, is actually tasting La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. So, these are some reflections. Mawlana Rumi. Muhammad. So I'm just going to wrap up with one poem, and then Allah. Hopefully the Shaykh will come and close us out. This one I'm going to read because it's new. First of all, do we have any mothers here? Raise your hand, mothers. I know I saw some mothers. I saw some babies. They have to have mothers. Unless it's a miracle. Do we have any children of mothers here? Trick question. Everybody better have their hand raised. Unless you got some explaining to do. You didn't? No. So, mashallah, we all know the blessing of mothers. We all know the nobility of mothers. In Arabic, the word for womb is rahm, which is the same root as rahma, rahman, right? So the womb is related to ar-Rahman. And interestingly enough, like kinship ties, like familial ties in Arabic, they're called silat ar-Rahim, womb connections. We're connected by the womb, right? Honor the wombs that bore you. And there's great metaphysical realities in the fact that Allah created polarities of male and female, but I really believe one of the great reasons we're in such a difficult time as human beings on earth is because we fail to honor the feminine in general, and that starts, I think, with mothers. This is to mothers. To those mothers that buttered sandwiches and lit love's lanterns when sweet dreams turned to nightmares, and cloaked us in radiant safety net bear hugs under covers, and sacrificed many a night's sleep like a coat over a puddle so our pillows stayed dry, and evaporated tears when we would cry, and smiled at the clouds till they bowed gracefully to a blue sky. To those mothers who allowed faces to hide in pant legs when we were shy, from strangers or neighbors or distant family members who just came to say hi, and who explained with true amazement the transformation of a caterpillar to a butterfly. To those mothers who peanut buttered sandwiches and read books over and over and over again until she could noose Dr. Seuss. But when that please mommy please eyes plead, mouth squeeze, chubby cheeks, gap teeth, her heart melts and she reads just one more time. And those words become sweet in her mouth because that warm ball of innocent trust in her curls up on her shoulder, and she knows no sound sweeter than hearing him breathe. And when that breathing gets deep, she looks deep into that glowing innocence, and her heart weeps with overwhelming mercy. For she is accessing the feeling nearest to God a human being can experience: love, unconditional mercy, compassionate love, true, selfless, gentle, nurturing, life-giving, soul-cleansing, spirit-raising love. For all those mothers who taught young boys in a society so sick and deprived of love to love, and taught young girls to find love deep within themselves, and watered seeds to full-flown flowers unfolding petals gracefully in concrete habitats or old rusty ramshackle shacks in any desert or countryside, anywhere and everywhere that mothers butter sandwiches or split coconuts or make curries or milk goats or steam rice or warm bottles on stoves or in microwaves or hang clothes on lines in the sunshine. This is for mothers who raise children to be lovers and let youngins hog all the covers and go to sleep last making school lunches and wake up first making breakfast and assembling outfits, who struggle and strain and bear the pain and don't complain, but smile. This is for mothers who had to be fathers and mothers, and had to hide tears because there was no time for her own when she was wiping away everyone else's. This is for mothers who never knew selfish and never felt they deserved a congratulations or a celebration or a high station or a standing ovation. But you do, all of you. And this is for mothers who bore abuse, both physical and mental, from men who had mothers too, who raised them like you, but forgot what they taught. And this is my pledge, I will not forget. For every woman is a potential mother, and was a daughter who was an innocent ball of trust, who was held by a mother who buttered sandwiches, if she was lucky. And if not, all the more reason to treat her like a mother would treat her who loved her in peanut butter sandwiches. And this is for my mother, the one I owe love to, because you are the one I know love through. You are the closest thing I've ever known to purity, to sincere, overwhelming, overpowering love overflowing from your heart through your eyes when you look at me. Everything good in me is from you. And it is such an understatement to say, but it is the most powerful thing mere language can convey. I love you. Thank you. I love you all. Alhamdulillah. That one's a little difficult. Sometimes I get emotional. So anyway, I thank you all for being here and sharing your blessed time. Again, I want to thank Mihdar, Crescent Collective. Round of applause for Mihdar. He's a special guy, and he made this happen. I want to thank Mukha Cafe. Everybody knows the Hadramis are blessed people, and that coffee is Yemeni. So every time you drink coffee, you should thank a Yemeni. Alhamdulillah.